Okay, so the next job now is to start some highlighting. So I've got some Mechanicus standard grey for that. And all we need to do now is just come in to each of these panels and then just add a little swipe of the lighter grey to the forward side of the vessel. And because this is the first highlight, we don't have to be too thin with the band of colour. Really, depending on how good your brush is, determines how decent the line that you create is going to be. Try little edge highlights as well. Just try and catch all these little edges. And these are the stages when you want to start being more neat. You don't want to be racking up more things to fix. So try and do it as neat as you can. And you're looking to put down just enough that you can fit another highlight into that position on top of this one. A little set of stairs on the main deck, which you can just pick out that, and then also want to try and get the tops of these little panels. Okay, so that's the start of a highlight. I've come down a brush size, and what I'm going to try and do now is add another highlight to the grey, come up a level, and hopefully start to make this look a bit better. We'll see. So I'm not trying to completely cover what I'd already put down with the previous layer. I'm trying to fit within the last one. I'm just trying to use the shape of the brush just to add a nice little highlight. So like I said, you're not covering up everything you've just done. You're just trying to add just a little bit more, but in the kind of furthest corner or edge. Okay, so you can start to see what's happening there. It looks like it's working at least. And as you go lighter with these greys, you don't have to do the whole edge, you can leave a little gap, etc. We're trying just to be a bit more selective. With where we put these highlights now. you want to try and make sure that you do leave some of the previous grey still visible. And it's one of these processes that the more careful you are, the better the result, obviously. If you take your time and just keep it neat. For example, like that, this one here that I did there, that looks a bit heavy-handed there. So we could tidy that up a little bit. It does add something, I think, to the overall look. And then we can do the same with the Mechanicus grey, the first grey. If we want, if I've still got some on the palette, might have dried a bit. Just blend that away, and you can see, hopefully you can see that just helps tidy it up. I'll go ahead and do the rest of those with that layer of grey now, and that'll really do it for the greys, I think. Just decided I'm going to, this is what painting's like, I've not done these before, so I'm just trying to see if I can just darken down the grey a little bit. It's maybe just a shade too light for me. So I've got the Nuln oil open again, and I'm just going to wash it over the grey areas. Just to knock it back a shade. Because I just felt it was maybe just a bit too grey, not quite dark enough. And this is never going to become black now, we can't get it that dark without starting again, but we'll just do a sort of wash over everything and see if we can just bring it down a little bit. I have tidied up those highlight layers a little bit also, just to kind of blend that in a bit more. So I suppose you could almost call this like a glaze. I mean, you do get specific paints for doing that, but it would tend to be colours rather than maybe just a black wash. But yeah, I think this will just help knock it back a little bit. I think that does help. It's going to be barely noticeable maybe on the camera if I show two. So the one on the left I've just used a wash, the one on the right is without the wash. I think you can see there's a bit of a difference, just to knock the lightness of the grey down a shade. So I'll go for that and do the rest of them, and then that's our model's finished in terms of the dark greys, and then we can move on to the red. Next is the red, so we'll start with our base colour again and just re-establish the reds, as they say. And this is going to be quite a quick layer to do, but we want to be careful with this layer now because we've done our grey. And we don't want to be going back over that again. And this is just going to correct any areas where the Nuln oil or whatever else gone onto the red. And that was a big mistake there. So try and get some water on it straight away. Need to be more careful. Because the further on in the painting that you are, the less mistakes you want to be making. But you probably will make mistakes, and you've just got to deal with it and fix them. It's not the end of the world. You can always just go back and fix them. And it is worth just going back with the original red. Because if you just go straight to a highlight, you're going to struggle. I do want to try and leave some shading from that null oil. And then that's it. So we'll do each of them to this point, and then we can start highlighting the red. So we've got our next shade of red now, the Evil Sun's Scarlet, which is a great red. And we're going to pretty much go over each band of red. Maybe leave a little bit of the darker stuff at the bottom. I'm finding it easier to just change how I'm holding the brush, so that I'm painting a stroke and line. This is when the red starts to really pop. I'm using the slightly smaller brush now. Let's do a little bit on each. I've got this little tricky bit here beside the stairs. Bigger surface of red. I'm just going to initially do 2 bands of red on either side, like that. We'll come back to that though. And now with this 2 bands dried up a bit, we can come back and go over the whole lot again. And the 2 bands, you kind of add a bit. Add a bit more to the sides. It's just because there's a bit more paint on the 2 outer edges. And then we'll just go around the top. And then the very tops. There we go. So hopefully you can see that red looking quite good now. So we'll get the rest done and then move on to the final highlight of the red. So we've got the Wild Rider red now. I'm just going to use that to do a highlight on the red parts. So one thing you'll notice is the original highlights on the reds and the old heavy metal examples is far more yellow. You can tell that the guys were mixing in yellow to brighten the red. Whereas this Wild Rider red, it's something different about that. That's okay. Doesn't take too long to add this highlight. But you can see it really does help make the red pop. Just a line up the other side looks good, I think. You can go back over it So just for comparison's sake, you can see maybe make out the red that they're using, where it really comes up to, I think, more of a yellow. And then there's the ship that we've got here, using the Wild Rider red. One thing I was just going to do quickly is just maybe add a bit of something to the deck. So I've got some of what I use for the base coat, which I think is Zandri dust. And then just with a thin brush, just a few little lines on the deck. I think it actually makes sense if you don't do every single one. Like that, just a tiny hint of it. And then the next thing is going to be the metal. So I've got the lighter shade of silver now, the iron breaker. And I was just going to try, if I can, maybe just to catch the top of those little metal bits there. And then down the side of this bit here, which is quite tricky. So I'll go through the rest of these and then it's on to the golds. Gold next, and I've got the kind of mid gold, what's that called? Gehenna's gold. And we're just going to try, and you can just kind of brush over the top of these ores. Makes those quite easy to do. And then just a line of gold on each of the end ores. And then maybe just across the tips of them as well. The mistake I often make with the gold is I just do too much of it. Maybe just across the top of the barrel a little bit. And then the ram's horn. Just trying to leave some darker colour in the middle. And there's auric armour gold, which we can use maybe as a final highlight. There we go, just a quick highlight, final highlight on the gold to try and bring it out a bit. So I'll do that on the rest, and then that's it done.